Look how they massacred my boy.
No! No, I believe!
But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family.
The Godfather opens in the dark, moody streets of New York City in 1945, setting the tone for the rest of the film. The Corleone family, headed by Don Vito Corleone, played by Marlon Brando, is one of the most powerful mafia families in America. The opening scene is of a wedding at the Corleone estate, as the family celebrates the union of Vito's daughter, Connie, to Carlo Rizzi. But even in the midst of this joyful event, we see the darker world of the Corleones, one where favors are asked, debts are repaid, and the Mafia code of honor dictates everything. Vito Corleone, the titular godfather, is a calm, wise, and highly respected figure. As the leader of the Corleone family, he controls a vast criminal empire, dealing in everything from gambling to politics, but always operating with a sense of loyalty and justice, at least in his own eyes. The opening scenes give us a glimpse into the structure of the family, showing Vito's role as a patriarch who is always approached with reverence. Several people come to him during the wedding to ask for favors, and Vito grants them as part of his code, an offer they can't refuse. This phrase will haunt the film, symbolizing the power and influence Vito wields. The most notable of these early encounters is the request made by Amerigo Bonacera, an undertaker who seeks justice after his daughter is brutally attacked. The American justice system, as Bonacera sees it, has failed him. He asks Don Vito for help, hoping that Vito can use his influence to punish the men who harmed his daughter. Vito listens patiently, offers to help, but asks for one thing in return: loyalty. Bonacera hesitates, but ultimately agrees, sealing the deal with a promise to repay the favor when the time comes. This scene introduces the central theme of the film: loyalty and the bond between those in the Corleone family. Vito is a man who expects loyalty in return for his favors, and this is where the tension between the Corleones and other mafia families begins. Meanwhile, Vito's children, sons Sonny, James Caan, Fredo, John Marley, and Michael, Al Pacino, are also featured prominently. Sonny is the hot-headed eldest son, while Fredo is seen as weaker and more easily manipulated. Michael, the youngest, seems different. He is a college-educated war hero who is trying to distance himself from the family business. At the wedding, Michael is seen with his girlfriend, Kay Adams, Diane Keaton, and he tries to explain to her that his family's criminal activities are not something he wants to be a part of. This creates an early conflict in Michael's character. He loves his family, but is not keen to follow in his father's footsteps. The peaceful atmosphere of the wedding is soon disrupted by a request for help from drug lord Sollozzo. Sollozzo wants to expand his heroin trade and asks Vito Corleone for support in exchange for financial backing. Vito refuses, explaining that he doesn't want to involve his family in drugs, as it would jeopardize his political connections and harm his reputation. Sollozzo, enraged by the rejection, attempts to have Vito killed. In a shocking turn, Vito is ambushed in a gunfight and is severely wounded, but survives, setting the stage for Michael's eventual rise. As Vito recovers, Sonny takes over the operations of the family, but he is far more volatile than his father. A series of power struggles ensue, and the family is forced to defend itself against rival mafia families, particularly the Tattaglias and Barzinis, who are behind the assassination attempt. During this time, Michael, who initially distanced himself from the family business, begins to reconsider his position. As the family faces greater threats, Michael realizes that he must step up to protect his father and the family's legacy. The turning point comes when Michael is forced to take action against the men who tried to kill his father. After a tense meeting in a restaurant, Michael takes matters into his own hands, killing Sollozzo and the corrupt police officer, Captain McCluskey, who worked with him. This is a pivotal moment for Michael, as it marks his first step into the world of crime that he had previously tried to avoid. After Michael Corleone kills Sollozzo and the corrupt cop McCluskey, his life takes a sharp turn. This pivotal moment is not only the beginning of his deeper involvement in the family business, but also marks the start of his transformation from the reluctant outsider to the new head of the Corleone family. However, as Michael steps into the violent world of organized crime, the impact on his relationships and his character becomes profound. Following the killings, Michael has to flee New York to avoid being arrested for the murder of Sollozzo and McCluskey. His father, Vito Corleone, insists that he goes into hiding in Sicily for his own safety. Michael reluctantly agrees, though he's deeply torn between the life he wanted with Kay and the duties he feels to his family. Before he leaves, he and Kay share a heart-wrenching farewell, marking a moment of emotional distance between them. Michael's departure to Sicily signals that the life he once sought to avoid will soon consume him. In Sicily, Michael stays in hiding, away from the constant threat of retribution from the Tattaglia and Barzini families. While in Sicily, Michael meets and marries a beautiful young woman named Apollonia, which marks the first of several personal tragedies he will face. Although Michael tries to find peace and happiness in this new life, he cannot escape the shadow of the Corleone family. A tragic event occurs when Michael's wife Apollonia is killed by a car bomb meant for Michael. This loss deeply scars Michael, further solidifying his commitment to the family and the violent world that he had once tried to resist. The tragedy in Sicily also serves to intensify his desire for revenge and drive him further into the depths of the Mafia. Meanwhile, in New York, the Corleone family is still reeling from Vito's attempt on his life. The Corleones have been unable to respond effectively to their enemies, who have been making major moves to dismantle their empire. Sonny, though a capable leader, is reckless and undisciplined, often making decisions in anger rather than with the strategic thinking his father is known for. His volatile temper and confrontations with rival families only escalate the situation. In a particularly brutal scene, Sonny responds to the kidnapping and brutalization of his sister Connie by going on a violent rampage, eventually being murdered in an ambush on a toll road. Sonny's death devastates the Corleone family, and his passing leaves a massive void in the family's leadership. With the loss of Sonny, the Corleone family finds itself in a precarious position. Vito, despite his age and injuries, knows that the family's survival depends on restoring order and taking back control. Michael, who has matured during his time in Sicily, returns to New York after his father's recovery. Vito, now in a position to once again lead the family, begins working toward reconciling with his enemies. However, this process is filled with more complexity than before, as the rival families, now led by the Barzini family, still threaten to destroy the Corleones. The defining moment of Michael's transformation into the new Godfather comes during a series of brutal and calculated actions. Vito's efforts to broker peace ultimately fail, and he is mortally wounded in a failed assassination attempt. Michael, once again stepping into the role of protector and avenger, realizes that the time has come for him to lead the family. Vito's death, although tragic, is also the moment when Michael's full transformation into the Godfather is solidified. In the wake of his father's death, Michael begins to take control of the family's operations with cold precision. He plans a series of retaliatory strikes against the families who have wronged them. Michael, with his calm demeanor and measured strategy, takes on the task of eliminating their enemies, both inside and outside the family. The violence and ruthlessness he previously sought to avoid are now part of his calculated approach to gaining power. The infamous sequence of events begins when Michael orchestrates a coordinated series of murders during the baptism of his nephew, where Michael renounces Satan and, in the same breath, orders the executions of the heads of the rival Mafia families. The brutal execution of the heads of the Barzini and Tattaglia families is a defining moment in the movie, as Michael demonstrates his complete embrace of the ruthless tactics his father used, but in a much colder, more calculating manner. The killings are swift and efficient, leaving Michael to consolidate his power. As Michael begins to take control of the family, he becomes increasingly isolated from those around him. Kay, who had once been his confidant and partner, begins to see a darker side to Michael that she cannot accept. She tries to hold on to the man she thought she knew, but Michael's growing ruthlessness drives a wedge between them. In the final moments of the film, Kay realizes that Michael is no longer the man she fell in love with, and she can no longer be a part of the world he is now fully immersed in. The final scenes of The Godfather show Michael solidifying his position as the new Godfather. He meets with the heads of the remaining Mafia families, asserting his dominance over the organized crime world and making it clear that he will rule with an iron fist. The dramatic closing shot of the film reveals Michael fully embracing his new role, as the door to his office is closed in Kay's face, symbolizing his complete transition into the dark world of the Mafia. The Godfather is a tragic story of family, power, and the corrupting influence of violence. Michael's journey from a hopeful outsider to the ruthless leader of a criminal empire is a heartbreaking one, as he loses not only his innocence, but also his soul in the process. The film masterfully explores the complexities of loyalty, revenge, and the cyclical nature of power, making Michael's transformation a tragic inevitability. The legacy of Vito Corleone lives on through his son, but in the end, it is a legacy built on blood, betrayal, and the loss of everything Michael once held dear.